Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersync. Account takeovers, malicious campaigns, impersonation, and data breaches are on the rise, driven by the pandemic and security challenges of a remote workforce. The number one most common attack vector in breaches is compromised credentials. Constella Intelligence protects your key employees from digital risk by continuously monitoring the deep, dark, and surface web for exposed credentials, detecting threats that others miss with real-time alerts to protect you and your company from a targeted attack. Try it free at securityweekly.com/Constella. Endpoint security is designed to protect every device in your fleet, wherever it may be. These days, that can be a lot of different places. Find out how HP Wolf Security uses emerging strategies like application isolation, along with a zero-trust approach and framework to give you a powerful, manageable, usable solution to your growing and increasingly spread-out security challenges. Learn how HP Wolf Security can make a difference across your endpoints at securityweekly.com/HP Wolf.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Ben Carr. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feed and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover on one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review those suggestions often and will reach out to you once reviewed. All right, gentlemen, time for articles for the week. There's a couple risk ones in here. There's some metrics and risk to kind of tie into our last segment. But I started with this first article about the CIO. And Jason, I kind of pulled this one in for you, right? Because having been both the CIO and the CISO, I wanted your thoughts. Like, are these like no-brainers, or are these things that CIOs, should be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me personally, they were no-brainers, right? I mean, I went into the CIO role though as someone who had the cybersecurity savvy. I came in as a CISO, right? So I think I'm a little biased to that, simply because I started my leadership career at the organization as the CISO, and was able to make some headway within the organization and really kind of change the business model on how the security team interacted with the business, enabled the business, was able to generate revenue, and from there, the board and the CEO came back and said, "Listen, take over IT as well." So I had that probably not normal career pathway that a typical CISO hadn't had. But I will argue that may be happening in the future, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah. Strangely enough, that's happened with me, right? Like I started off with the CISO, and now I've got both CISO, CIO, and privacy as well. So I think
that's exactly it, right? I mean, it's one of those scenarios, and we talked about it too, right? Become a risk management professional, or you end up reporting to one. I mean, ultimately, I managed security operations, I manage governance, risk, and compliance, and I manage the entirety of the IT organization. So, that's, I honestly feel that's the future of many CISOs. If they can align with the business and they can really integrate themselves, I think they have a leg up.
And I think, when you think about companies approaching it from their key risks, like what company right now isn't aligning that one of their key risks, if not their key risk, is security. And so from that perspective, I mean, you really have to think about how the alignment in the organization works. And I think that's certainly here, saying the CIOs have to be cybersecurity savvy. Yeah, either that or you're going to end up falling under risk, right? I mean, that's just that's kind of the writings on the wall.
Agreed. And honestly, I think these are all the three points that they have here are things that we're all dealing with, no matter where we are in the organization. I mean, one of them is boost tech retention amid work from anywhere. Well, the Great Resignation is real. We're all feeling it. I've spoken to a lot of chief operating officers, a lot of CEOs, and it's just where we're at, as really that workforce today.
Jason,
it's
say
hard
a lot
to
of
retain
these things
talent.
are just they align to areas where the business or the CIO has been short-sighted, right? I mean, you're short-sighted because you haven't focused on security. Okay, you're short-sighted because you haven't seen that there's a transition happening and work from anywhere
Right.
as if people aren't going to come back into the office, right? Read an article, large company requiring people to come back in the office as a mandate, and only half the people showed up, right? Well,
Right.
you should have read those tea leaves.
That's it.
It's not going to happen. And then the third, accelerate IT architecture and develop product roadmaps. I mean, yeah, treat it like a business, right? Treat it like
That's
you're
it.
actually managing the P&L and you have a plan, as opposed to just kind of shooting from the hip or dealing with budget inefficiencies.
Well, and I think that last point, Ben, actually helps you with the second point. Like if you're building the right technology platforms, you're doing the right things, that can also potentially help you with retention because you're not stuck in a legacy organization with legacy systems. You're touching the latest and greatest technology. Think about what your staff wants. They want to be working on the latest and greatest technologies. And if you have a really good plan for your systems, then you're going to be in a better position to retain your talent because they're going to love doing the things that they're doing.
Matt, I'd even say it's more basic than that. Show them you have a roadmap and the plan, and they'll just love you for having a roadmap and a plan, right? I mean, I think when you think about ICs and teams, they want to know what the vision is, not just for you, but the company as a whole, and communicating that effectively from the CEO down. Here's where we're headed to give you a vision of what I need you to do. That's what people on my team ultimately, like time and time again, they want to know is where are we going? And I think, yes, people leave leaders, they don't leave jobs, but they also leave companies where they can't figure out, like on a day-to-day basis, why are they there?
Yep. Yeah. Where's the North Star? Where's the North Star that they align to and guides them through their day-to-day, right? The outcomes that we all want to achieve. 100%.
Yep. Talking about a roadmap, CISA lays out a roadmap for small businesses, threat levels high, so they lay out these 8 steps on what small businesses should do. I applaud CISA for doing this, by the way, because I think where we see the biggest gap right now is the small businesses not understanding the potential threats to their business. We've talked about it multiple times on this show. CISA's like, here's some steps. You guys, these are some of the basics. Like you got to be prepared because you are not immune to this stuff.
That's right. And they're doing it just beyond, they're doing it beyond the small businesses too. I think I had mentioned here on one of the shows that this is a very, the very list that they're handing out to public sector entities as well, right? So they're handing it out to the school districts, the municipalities, some of the quasi-government entities. They're handing this out as well, and they're actually saying, you know what? Here's your contact. Here's the phone number. Reach out to us, and we'll actually help you through a resilience assessment as well.
Yeah, it's practical
you know what?
stuff.
Kudos to them, honestly.
It isn't pie in the sky stuff. It's very practical, right? Back up your data. Make sure things are encrypted. Deploy modern security tools. Use multi-factor. I mean, they're all very practical steps. If you haven't taken, you really should.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's nothing here that says you got to go implement automation and AI and ML and all the crazy stuff that everybody wants to focus. No, this is just simple foundational elements. Do these 8 things, you'll be in a much better position without all the other crazy tech that's out there.
A lot of table stakes items.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now to my risk articles. Cyber risk quantified is cyber risk managed. So this talks about cyber risk quantification. This ties into our last segment a little bit because I thought, well, what a better way to tie an article into this and looking at, some of the best practices around cyber risk quantification. We covered some of these in the last segment with Charlene, talking about interpretation and communication collaboration across the different teams, talks about maintaining the models and, maybe some automation to keep them up to date. So some of the things we talked about last segment are all laid out in this article as well.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, assigning a monetary value to cyber risk is a great enabler to the security team to have the business conversation, right? Because that's the one thing that transcends your department, right? And you're not walking to the table having the bits and bytes conversation. You're actually talking about monetary risk.
Yeah, I think it's a really good target. I hesitate because sometimes I just think this is really hard for organizations to get their hands around the data that actually allows them to come up with the quantification, right? That connection point can be difficult.
Yeah, no,
and I know.
But
go ahead, Jason.
no, I was just going to say it's a journey, right? And it's never going to be perfect. But at the end of the day, if you can start aligning some of that, and let me tell you, the CFO will be one of the, if you have a great relationship with the CFO, they'll be one of the first people to call you on it, right? And that's why over the course of my career, having a very, very tight relationship with the CFO to help you refine your numbers, help you refine your metrics, I think that's a relationship that, can really be beneficial. And I always ran my numbers by the CFO.
Because the first thing that's going to happen, and I know this from history, is you're going to do the model, you're going to create the numbers, and then people are going to be like, there's no way those numbers are correct. I'm serious. That's the first kind of gut reaction is there's no way that much is at risk. Mm-hmm. And then you sit down, you start refining it with the CFO, to your point, Jason, and you start to show them the model, the transparency in the model is important. Then people are like, oh, maybe that is right, or you make some tweaks, but the first instinctual reaction is no, those numbers can't be right.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where I had come up with some models to present to the leadership team, and the CFO actually had one of their auditors that are on their team look through the model, right, and then help us refine it. So having that relationship, leverage the talent that you have surrounding you. Leverage the CFO, because the last thing you want to do is walk into a meeting and think you have everything solid, and then the CFO calls you on it in the meeting, right? You don't want that.
Right.
I'm always in the position of bring my A game, and if bring my A game means I have to collaborate with other business units and get the subject matter experts in with me to design the model, so be it. At least I'm bringing the A game to the table.
Yeah, again, and I think the extension of that is just to get the buy-in from your stakeholders, right? I mean, all those people are stakeholders, so getting them to kind of buy into that they had vision into the model and they could help you develop it. If it's not seen as your island that you're standing on defending, but it's seen as a collection of ideas that you've brought together with the right people, it's a much stronger argument.
Yep.
Right. So that then ties into the second article, which is around security metrics, because these two things should actually be combined. Now, by themselves, neither of these articles connect the dots, really. But we need to connect them because, Jason, as you know, this is the next challenge. Let's say I can quantify risk and I can get everybody to buy into the numbers. Now, how am I going to report metrics against those risk areas that we've just quantified, and what's the structure for that? Now, pieces of this I definitely agree with because I've built some of these models in the past. And so things like hierarchy and how some of the structure comes together, definitely agree with. I don't know if you've used any of these components that are in here. I was just curious your thoughts.
I mean, from my side of the aisle, it's definitely making sure that you're aligning. The modular section, right? It's aligned to a framework. Aligned to some level of a framework. I've always been a big NIST guy. Coming from the military and government. I've always aligned to NIST 853. I've used that as a framework. It just gives you some level of a global framework and standard to align with, and then ultimately align that framework with maybe other pressures coming in, right? So, for example, having 6,000 customers and managing to 18 authority documents, it was in our best interest to align those 18 authority documents back to NIST 853. So we could have the conversations with our customers about risk and about, our compliance to their frameworks or adherence to their frameworks. So I think that's a big piece is having that ability to align to a framework.
Yeah, so I would agree. I mean, the core is have a framework, have something you're aligning to, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you're aligning to. I do like the idea of building that consistency approach across and essentially the mapping. So whether you're using NIST or you're using ISO or you're trying to solve for HIPAA, you have an alignment that just says, look, if I'm solving this criteria, this control, it aligns back to this for HIPAA, this for NIST, this for ISO, and you can create that mapping for the parties that may be interested in it. I think the bigger thing is what are you trying to accomplish with the metrics, right? What are you trying to drive at or drive to? And that's really the most important part to me is, I think we've fallen a lot in the security industry of like trying to show data and numbers that are way too technical. And I think a metric shouldn't really be technical as much as it trying to highlight where are you on the problem curve? Are you solving it? Are you static or are you falling behind? And then, those leading and trailing indicators to get to a point where you can say, okay, I see this early. I'm now going to make a pivot or a change. What's the indicator? So you can go create an operational change to fix that problem before it actually becomes critical or an issue. Or, once you see something, how do you know that you corrected it so you can then put your focus elsewhere, right? And devote the resources so you're not overspending or underspending in any one area.
Yeah, no, that's dead on. Lead and lag indicators are key. It's something that I'm constantly speaking to the teams on, and we've had this conversation here. You can't always just be looking through the rearview mirror. You have to have those lead indicators that allow you to look through the windshield, right, and be able to adjust and pivot and change direction.
And vendors have been traditionally pretty bad at this, right? They give us metrics and indicators that, again, are just how many vulnerabilities I have, right?
Yep.
What are the number of events that I've seen? Like, I really don't care. Like, what is the issue that you're trying to highlight for me? Is it good that I have a lot of vulnerabilities? Is it bad that I have a lot of vulnerabilities? Wouldn't it be more interesting, like, what's the inertia of how quickly I'm fixing those vulnerabilities, and do they comply with the SLAs I've set? And so I think we really need to push the vendors a lot more. Again, I think they were highlighting the Microsoft tool set here, and I've used them a little bit. I think it's building a framework of tools that functionally works for you, but challenging and pushing your vendors to deliver tools that actually give us indicators and make impact to the business versus just highlighting that there's a lot of data they can see.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think that lends to that user interface, that last piece, right? Make it something that's easy to consume, easy to share. Be able to share it with different levels of the business and be able to share it with the right business stakeholders. So, that user interface piece, that visualization is extremely important.
The self-service, right? I mean, ultimately, you can get your customers to self-service and your users to self-service and figure out the problems before you have to alert them. It's a much better holistic experience.
I can't wait to pull together some of the stuff we're working on internally because I want to see how it gets visualized, because it might be a very interesting thing to share back, because I'm trying to build some of these leading indicators and metrics for our business, not from a security perspective, but just the day-to-day operations, right? Because it's the same kind of thing. What are the indicators, leading indicators and KPIs that you want to track to check the health of the business as it's running, right? You can apply some of those same things to the security side. I'm just doing it from a business perspective, and this has been like the foundational thing for me. It's like, I want a dashboard that I can log into every morning and see how the business is performing.
Yes.
You should be able to do it.
Right? What's the pulse?
What's the health? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not going to be number of vulnerabilities or number of events, but there will be some things in there that we should have metrics around, like traffic and time on page, and just simple things that will tell you whether your content resonates and is performing, right? Because that's a business metric for us.
100%.
Yeah. This next one, 6 questions you should ask your vendor if they get acquired. I love this list. We've seen a lot of consolidation. We've seen a lot. There's going to be more, right? And so I've been through a couple of these, and some of these questions, I would love to hear the answers today.
Agreed. I added one off for me.
The founders should be asking these questions of the people who are doing the acquiring before
that's right. No, 100% agreed. But I added one in there, and it probably would be my first question, and it's, how does it affect my contract, my support, and my pricing?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
am
true.
I gonna get, is my contract going to be changed because of the acquisition? Is my support capability, or who do I go to for support, or are any of my SLAs going to change? And then ultimately, am I going to be grandfathered into pricing that I had?
Yeah, agreed. The one I love is number 5. Is the acquiring company a private equity firm?
That's a huge
but
one.
Matt, that's not the real question, right? That's a question of, am I going to stick with that company or not?
That's right.
Well, I mean, some of the questions above this are kind of leading to this one, which is, for people who don't know how this typically happens, founders start a company, they've been in it 10, 15 years, they're looking for an exit, right? Private equity firm comes in, buys out the the founder's stake to now run the company, so the founders can go move on and do something else. That should give you a hint about the potential future of the product that you purchase. Because if you believed in the founders and the guys that were leading the ship, is it going to continue under the private equity firm? I've seen a number of these over the years where you see stuff go sideways after a number 5 happens. And so that's why I said I love this article, because people have to understand this, because it does potentially impact the future of that product and what you made your initial investments in.
Well, there was an old commercial, I think it was for CA, right? Where the guy came in and he was just like a robot that said, how many more licenses do you want? How many more licenses do you want? And it never was a more truism spoken. I mean, you really have to look at what the future path is if they get acquired. Are you going to get the product and the service that you're expecting and the growth? I mean, we often invest in a lot of smaller companies because we believe in the vision of where they're headed. That vision can take a left turn at Albuquerque pretty quick.
Hey.
No pun intended.
Or in my case, Amarillo.
Yeah. For sure.
Because from Amarillo, I have 2 directions: south to Lubbock to go see my son, or southeast over to the new place. So for me, it's Amarillo, not Albuquerque. Anyways. Next article, hiring and recruitment. 5 ways managers sabotage the hiring process. Any of these sound familiar? Anybody?
Oh my God, all of them. Every single one. I've seen instances of the signaling culture of micromanagement. It's one of those scenarios where nobody wants to walk into an organization where they feel like they're going to be micromanaged, right? So, and a leader can, if they don't play their cards right and they don't communicate correctly, they can come across as a micromanager, and that's a turnoff.
Yeah.
There's one on here that I didn't see, which was not hiring the best talent because you're afraid of, how that's going to affect you, right? Like I see a lot of managers, especially newer managers, like they don't want to hire the best people because they're just afraid that it's going to displace them. And I think that's you really have to realize, like, you can't be the best at everything. You've got to hire people who are really experts in their area and let them run their piece.
I took that one kind of out of number 4. They overlook contrarian candidates because they're too close to them or maybe too worried about them.
They're hiring. Yeah. They're basically hiring their clones, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, hiring a clone could be bad too. Yeah, that's certainly too. Yeah.
Well, you're not hiring for diversity, right? I mean, when you hire a clone, you're hiring people who play to your existing strength. Where I like hiring to where my weaknesses are. Like that's why I want to hire people around me, is to be able to bring a diverse set of workforce so we can solve problems together. That's how you get diversity. It's, as a leader, you can't assume you're the best at everything. When you do, forget it. Your ego just took over, and you're done for.
Yep, for sure. Last article, no surprises here. 2 years after the pandemic, the need for cybersecurity talent, especially technical talent, is through the roof. ISACA did an update on their workforce study. Just wanted to drop this in here for all those people out there. There's plenty of opportunities in the cybersecurity space.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing it all over the technology space at this point, right? I mean, cybersecurity obviously has some of the highest numbers, but app dev space is just like this as well. I mean, we're seeing science. A ton.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Did you have a comment there, Ben?
No, I was just saying the pipeline has really got tight, and I think I echo Jason's point. It's not just security. I was saying data science is really hard to find. It's look outside of your normal expectations for where you're hiring people. I think that's my pro tip there. Like, don't look to the same well. You got to find a different well. It's hopefully a little deeper and a little wetter.
Mm-hmm.
Or just go to your competitors and see who you can steal away. I'm seeing it all over the place. I mean,
it's everywhere. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I see the movements of my network, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they got poached to go over and do this.
I mean,
right?
I'm at a point now where I'm basically saying, because it's so hard and it takes so many cycles and so much bandwidth. My comment of the year is, I don't want to be a unicorn hunter. I want to be a unicorn farmer. So I'm about building the talent now, right?
There you go. Yeah. I think you have to. I think you really have to seriously think about building the talent from within, because my gosh, the recruiting that's going on out there, Jason, and what you have to pay them is crazy
so
right
much.
now.
It's absolutely insane.
Gone through the roof. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm going farm boy instead of hunter.
There you go. Well, I'm close to some ranch land down in Texas.
Hey.
Maybe we can build a cybersecurity ranch.
There we go.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is my last show from Colorado. Jason has the helm next week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks from Texas on Business Security Weekly.